All right, everybody. How's everybody doing? We are here for the first ever SlabStox monthly trading card market report review. I believe we have like an official name for that. It's a little down here a little bit called State of the Card Market Podcast. I am here. My name is Lou Janu. I'm one of the hosts of Card Talk. I'm also here with my great friend. We've been trying to do this for so many years now. I'm so glad it's finally happening. Aaron Nowak is here. Aaron, say hello.
Thanks, Lou, man. This has been a long time coming, as we both know, and it's just a pleasure to actually publish something like this through 1:37 p.m. and to do a podcast like this with you and with others from our, both of our podcasts will be fun in the future. And I'm just excited for this first episode and walk people through like what this is, why it might be useful, and what type of discussion points we can have off of it.
Yeah, something that you and I talked about when we were finally trying to actually put this together now, and I was talking to Aaron, to Tyler and Ryan about it too. Is like we don't get into the numbers as much on our show, and you guys are obviously the best at that. So, and you specifically are like an alien with this stuff. So I'm very excited to walk through all this. There's some really interesting stuff in here. It came out the week before July 4th, so it might have gotten lost in the shuffle. Really interesting stuff. Obviously, the card market's in like a very strange place right now. That's a safe way to put it, I think, and that's a factor of a lot of things that we'll get into here, and I think some other stuff as well. So, any initial thoughts, Aaron, before we jump into it?
I just thought that it's cool to see people like read this thing for what it is and to kind of maybe take their thoughts back with them. For us, when we want to put this together and obviously release it with you all through the blog, through 137, everything, it was just supposed to be a way for people to come and like basically get everything that they might either miss day to day or see day to day and combine it all into one report that people can read each month and maybe have takeaways with or go make their own thoughts on. This is in no way supposed to be oh, you should go do this now. You should go buy this. You should go sell this. This is just supposed to be like, from our take, like what we're seeing moving the hobby by the numbers, and then our, opinions on it and like our takeaways based off of that. Obviously, it's not the strategy for everyone, but I think it'll be an interesting starting point for people to learn about and to go and maybe make discussions with their own friends and collectors off of it. And literally, just like Lou and I are doing today, like that's why I love cards. It's because we can connect with others and have these discussions on numbers that I love so much and other people do too. So it should be a fun time.
Yeah, I think before we started, Aaron was like, "Hey, did you actually read this thing?" And I did actually read it, and I do have thoughts. So I'm sure that as we get into it, we'll have some good discussions for sure. So yeah,
Definitely.
so just some upfront stuff here. I hope everyone checks it out. 137pm.com. We'll have the full link in the description, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to if you do have not already, Daily Slab newsletter we send out once a morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time for the last 3 straight years. Whenever we release this market report, if you're subscribed to the newsletter, you will know right away. Like it'll be the first thing in the newsletter when the market report releases. You can go read it right away and get all the info before maybe people that straggle behind and read it. So that's a good way to do that if you haven't yet.
Yeah, I think again, as someone who is not very educated when it comes to numbers and they kind of confuse me, Daily Slab's been great for me. I love checking you guys out on a daily basis, so I hope everyone subscribes to that.
Thank you. Yeah, unique content pieces every single morning. It's a lot of hard work, but I think that a lot of people like it. So
Awesome. All right, so June 2022, 5 takes on the card market. I'm going to pass it off to Aaron. Aaron's going to probably mostly lead the way here, and I'll be jumping in with thoughts and questions. So if you want to give a breakdown of like kind of how we're setting it up from a monthly standpoint, and then we'll get into the takes.
for sure. So this was the first market report, obviously the first one we're releasing. It's actually coming at the perfect time, halfway through the year, releasing on, for the June market report, but coming out in July. And we wanted to open it up with like, hey, there's been a lot that's happened in the card market in 2022. Everyone knows it. If you've been collecting for a long time, it's definitely different than it was 2 years ago, which is different than it was 10 years ago. And we just want to give kind of like a year-to-date overview on some of the numbers. Not every market report will have these year-to-date numbers in. They will for some specific things, like maybe looking at the Card Ladder 50 index, which is where all this data is coming from. Is from Card Ladder Pro, not the CL. Yeah, shout out Card Ladder. The CL50 is obviously it's 50 cards that kind of comprises the most transacted / maybe most impactful sales that happen that you can kind of point to, like an S&P 500. Obviously, it's not the same exact thing. It's a benchmark that we can look at, but generally we will be looking at monthly numbers because it is a monthly market report. But for this one, yes, we will be looking at some year to date. Then on top of that, there's 5 different takeaways in this market report that we go through. Some of it's related to specific cards, some of it's related to specific sports, some of it's related to specific market segments like a vintage or an ultra modern. But the first takeaway we have here to talk about is pretty much looking at the CL50 and kind of the card market and the overall landscape of the economy and of the world right now, which, as we know, really no market is performing in the green, which is for obvious reasons. Stuff costs more right now, gas costs more, food costs more, and that's less money to spend on these other things out there. So when we're looking at this first chart that comes up here, it's the CL50 over the last 2 years, and this was just a brief overview for those that maybe you scroll down a little bit, Lou, you'll see this chart here that is going to show how the market in general for these 50 cards, that just to shout out a couple of cards. If you're like, okay, well, what's in the CL50? Like a 79 OPG Wayne Gretzky PSA 8 rookie. It's not like the PSA 10 where there's only two, but it's a higher grade one that, holds price pretty steadily. Like a LeBron 2003 Topps Chrome base rookie PSA 10, which clearly has had a tough 2 years. Patrick Mahomes, PSA 10 rookie, and Hank Aaron PSA 5 rookie, stuff like that. So looking at this chart here, we can obviously see how the market has boomed for these type of cards and then dropped, but it's held pretty steady for the last year. A little bit down more recently, just with all the different markets performing in the red. And then if you give it one more scroll down, we're looking at this chart here that is comparing the CL50, or at least lining it up to other indexes out there, like the S&P 500, like the Dow Jones, like Ethereum and Bitcoin. And I want to make a preface that, yeah, you can't apples to apples compare these things. The card market is very unique to where it's not transacted at the second that you place a sell or buy order,
and at the volume
that you're in these trading windows. So like the S&P 500, you can go sell your stock whenever during trading hours, and boom, there's your money. That's not the same thing with cards. So in general, something like the CL50 will lag behind these other markets because it's not as reactionary, because people aren't necessarily going to run right to their safe, pull out their Hank Aaron PSA 5 and sell it, and then boom, it's there logged in the data history. It just is not like a super efficient market. The card market has came a long way in the last 3 years from there being no data sharing and no volume tracking to where there's something now to look at, but it still is not to the level of these other markets. So when we look at the numbers here, yeah, it's down 14%. You can say, oh, Ethereum's down 73%, which has dropped a lot. This is for year to date specifically on this chart, but it's kind of hard to put a fully functional number on that. But it also does point to that people probably are more willing to hold, at least in my case, I know other collectors' case too, hold on to those cards like a Hank Aaron rookie PSA 5, because it's not as easy to replace it a year down the line when maybe the money is there. So part of a Bitcoin or part of Ethereum or a stock in the S&P 500, you can go and buy that thing back relatively easily depending on what the price is at. A year from now, a lot harder to go find that perfectly centered Hank Aaron PSA 5 that you once had, which is why I think that the CL50 will drop at a smaller rate, because those cards aren't getting transacted on as fast to lead to those market values dropping. Lou, where do you sit on that?
I agree with you on that. I think cards are always an interesting case of, collecting, investing, as it's been discussed ad nauseum for the last 5 years or 4 years.
Yeah.
Cards are special because they have a sentimental value to people. And I think that will always keep the transaction volume lower, and it will always keep the emotional attachment to the item, which keeps the price at a certain level, just naturally. It's just the way it is. It's the same thing with FOMO, with, crypto, and FOMO with anything else in stocks, whatever. As people get more attached to their assets, it's kind of something that it's what happened in a way with the GameStop thing. People got attached to their asset and they got attached to the story, and that kept the price up. You can kind of make an argument for cards in that way as well. And it's, I think cards will always hold strong as an alternative asset in general for that exact reason. And I do think it'll always lag behind in the same way that you say. I also wanted to preface all this with, I'm not like a financial expert, so I'm going to say some things that sound kind of stupid, and I just want to put that out there for everybody.
I want to put that out there too. Well, we are the ones that are producing a huge report, and we have created thousands and thousands and thousands of content pieces on the changing sports card market in the last 4 years. Neither am I a financial expert either. So yeah, I kind of take this all and take your own opinions on it. Go home, do some more homework if you do want to maybe act on some of the things in this report. But it's a starting spot for a lot of people who want to learn about the sports car market and how it moves.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think just from a macro standpoint of markets to date, CL50, the Dow Jones, S&P 500, Bitcoin, there's 500 million reasons why all these things act the way that they do.
Yeah.
It's basically impossible to pinpoint. Anyone who told you they can pinpoint these types of things is lying to you. So I just want to
and that's what I agree. I 100% agree with that.
Cool. So let's scroll down a little bit. Also, I see you have some quotes in here. Did you speak with Chris? Did you speak with Andy?
For
Talk to
sure.
me.
So I personally did not. I gotta give a shout out here because I don't know how I didn't get credit yet. Most of this report, a lot of the bones is written by
The legend himself.
Jeff, which would be my dad, Papa Slab, or Steve Kerr, whatever you want to call him. He's been a content writer for darn near probably like 3 decades, and has done magazines in the past, worked for General Mills, worked for other companies, ran his own business in the content space. So he wrote a lot of the Bones report, executed the interviews with Chris from Card Ladder, who obviously creates a super high functioning platform that contributed data to a lot of this. So there is different quotes from Chris kind of taking a look at the card market and how it's performed and what his thoughts are on it too. And then Andy, the owner of Indie Card Exchange Shop in Indianapolis, just ran the Midwest Monster with J&J All-Star Sports Cards. Andy is a phenomenal gentleman. He's amazing. He just loves the hobby, does so much for the hobby, and gives a lot of different thoughts through here, kind of the card shop perspective, seeing the traffic that walks through the door and the attendees at the show, to where we look at that chart we just showed, either the CL50 chart or the one that compares the different markets. Those are just numbers on a screen. I love numbers, but I love cards, and I love people who collect cards more than just numbers. I can see and feel at these shows, talking to different collectors, what they think about the hobby and how they see engagement. And the engagement's still high. Sure, maybe the spend is lower right now for obvious reasons, but the fact that people are still here collecting, engaging, trading, all that different stuff, I think does show great long-term prospect for the hobby and the stage it will be on 5 years down the line, especially with Fanatics and what they're going to do to put the hobby in more people's hands also.
I agree. And, the volume is lower, but there's still plenty of things happening. We literally have an entire segment on our show every single week where people are making money. So there's always room on the margins. There's always things to do. But anyway, let's get into it. I don't want to take too much time up for people here. Let's
Definitely.
jump into the 30-day performance.
Yeah, so we're looking at a 30-day performance here for the CL50 specifically. I want to call out a couple of specific cards that contributed to dropping it, because some people I know might think about the CL50 and say, okay, well, what is it? Like I said earlier, Trout rookie PSA 10 from 2011 update, a very, very replaceable card. I think there's nearly 5,000 or more PSA 10s of that. Dropped 20%, obvious reasons. People can go find one in the future, so they're going to sell it now to get the cash because that's a card that they can get rid of. I'm no Pokemon expert. I know a decent amount about it, but Charizard first edition Hollow PSA 9 also dropped 20%. And then for Oscar Robertson specifically, the 61 Fleer PSA 6, this is a stock image. This is not the card that last sold for $2,880, but that type of card there with the off centering could contribute in itself to a 20% drop within a month. So the vintage, I want to call it out because it's in the article later. You can read about it, but I'll speak very shortly on this, is that the vintage sales, either gains or drops at a very high margin, so like 20% or more, is generally contributed to a card in its eye appealance condition, which I love. I love the fact that people are looking at the card and buying the card for what it is. You can see a SGC 5 outsell a PSA 6 or a PSA 4 outsell maybe an SGC 6, whatever, vice versa, because of the fact that people buy the card and how it looks, which is great because I think that's how it should be for nearly all markets too.
I agree. Yeah, and it's one of the cool parts about vintage is like I look at the numbers, right, and I see all the numbers on the trends and all of that stuff, but it's completely dependent on the individual cards that come
Yes.
out, and especially when you get into these like super vintage, pre-war, all that stuff, they're so unbelievably condition sensitive that you could see a card sell for $30,000 and you can see a card sell for $250,000 in like 2 days of each other. It's wild.
Yeah, for sure. And it matters a lot. So that's a great point.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, give us a little scroll down here because now we're getting into more of the modern action, the high end action. So obviously, maybe like less than 0.1% of the people either listening to this or buying cards in general can even transact on a card of this type. But these are two cards here, Luka and Mahomes. I think for the last 4 years, Lou, you may or may not agree with me. These are probably the two athletes that people would sit there and say, if you're going to buy, the next guy, you're buying these two. Don't even look elsewhere. You look at Luka, you look at Mahomes. And I have generally just not bought either because of the sole fact that everyone else was trying to buy them. And yeah, they might be the best of the generation for these, 2017s, 2018s type of deal. But if everyone goes to buy something at a specific time, it can create an extremely overpriced value. So both these two cards you're looking at the screen, this is both National Treasures rookie patch autos. The Luka's out of 5, the Mahomes is out of 10.
Banger cards, by the way.
What do you say?
Bangers.
Oh, absolutely. Like these are the cards
is in a sick patch.
Like these are the cards you want. Like these are the NTRPAs, like BGS 9, BGS 9.5. They're tough to grade. and they both sold for $1 million last year at one point. Well, these two cards came up for auction, not necessarily the same copies, right, but different serial numbers, came up for auction and sold for half of that just this past month, and it was for around $500,000 each. They're around $1 million each. For me, looking at this, yes, we can't buy these cards, just about all of us, but we can apply this to the lower end market, maybe less than $1,000 or over $1,000 if you transact in that area. Even if you're looking at the surefire prospect or the GOAT, like a Brady or a Jordan, if you just buy it at the wrong time, you buy it at the wrong time. There's no escaping it, which is why I think that everyone who comments on all these different Instagram posts, buy the GOATs, buy the GOATs, buy the GOATs, like there's good theory behind that. To buy something of a player that's going to be, here 10 years from now, and people will covet all that different stuff. But you just got to pay so close attention to what you're buying at what time, making sure you're not buying at this insane peak, but you're maybe buying at a respectable level that you feel comfortable with. If you felt comfortable at $1 million, then more power to you. You have more money than I guess is needed for a card like this. So that's fine. If you're going to hold it for the next 10 years, these two guys become the two best players of this generation. Cards are super hot at that point, maybe because of Fanatics, and maybe you're looking at $5 million pieces. Who knows? So there's two ways about it.
Yeah, it's all risk assessment, right? Like if you're someone who's spending $1 million on a card, and I'm decently confident you don't have that much interest in transacting inside of like a 30 to 90-day window or whatever. Like if you're one of those people who's going to buy something, stick it in your safe, stick it in the safety deposit box, send it to, whatever vault you choose to use, and it stays there for 10 years, then awesome. But if you're someone who's transacting on a week-to-week basis, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter who it is. It's all timing.
Yeah, I agree. And then the last thing I'll say on this, too, is that the people that sold these assets or these cards, most likely was making a ton of money on this. Like the Mahomes 9.5 right there, those things. I think the only one copy that sold for over $1 million is the one you would have lost money on if you relisted it right away. All the other ones were bought between like 10,000 and like 50 grand or something like that. So you're making like 400 grand. And you're probably happy regardless if it sold for that.
Totally. And I think also like, the general positioning on these two players has changed, or the general narrative has changed on those two players. And I think you mentioned it a little bit down here. Kind of the rubber met the road on who these players were, and their results kind of spoke for themselves, right? Like Luka's awesome. He's probably a top 5 player in the NBA, but the Mavericks have serious issues. They just lost Jalen Brunson. There's bad things are happening. The Chiefs have been awesome, but they just lost a whole bunch of receivers. It's getting kind of weird for Mahomes.
And the competition's so much bigger now too in the AFC.
Yeah, like it's the realities of their careers is finally starting to catch up to them. You can't just say, "Oh, they got drafted in 2018. They're really awesome."
Yeah,
that type of thing.
I agree with you too. And just to wrap up what the first takeaway was, I know we're kind of going a little long in the first takeaway, but I also think it might be the most important. I just want to say, people are obviously selling for different reasons. If you need to sell, you need to sell. Pick out the things that you don't want, in the next 6 months or year that, to sell if you do have to sell. But that is why, cards hold up better, is because I think that there is rarity behind it that you just might not be able to find that card. And that's the cards that people are holding. And if people are willing to sell them, maybe those are cards you should be buying right now if you do think, there's an opportunity there.
Yep. If you have $500,000 to spend on a Luka Doncic. I know. All right. Takeaway number 2.
All right, 200 grand. No, takeaway number 2. These are looking at 2 specific sports that have done well year to date. So if you look at the monthly, obviously at this chart, a lot of it's down. Hockey has got a little bit of a bump because of the Stanley Cup and Cale Makar, freaking phenomenal player, Rosen Price, Nathan McKinnon, and everything. But this year to date, racing and baseball, which is kind of fun because I think that like if Nate was here, he'd be like, "Oh, go baseball," and you and I are like, "Oh, go F1," as I'm wearing my AlphaTauri hat. But yeah, I mean, I think what happens here, and we've seen this, Lou, for the last 3 to 4 years, and you and I don't think fell into these categories, but it was just like buy basketball all the time, biggest sport in the world, most money going here, there, everywhere. And then it very quickly becomes overvalued. And then when people want to go find new cards to buy, they're not going to go buy their basketball cards they've had for the last 4 years. They're going to go look to those other sports they like a baseball, like a racing, or F1. F1 makes up most of the racing category. There's a little NASCAR in there, but yeah, that's what I'm seeing here. And then, when you're looking at the biggest drop, basketball 15%. The smallest drop would be like soccer, 3% year to date. And I think that there's a lot of excitement about the World Cup, but given that the market, the timing is pretty poor, I'd say, for people who are excited about the World Cup, because the economy not performing well right now has definitely stifled the I need to go buy my soccer cards for the World Cup. I still have like so many soccer cards. I got all my Mason Mounts and everything, and I'm very excited for the World Cup. But I definitely think it has stunted the growth of it to where people were maybe expecting that soccer to replicate like a baseball, like up 5% this year, maybe an F1 up 20%, but just not happening there.
Yeah, again, I think it's just there's so many things happening in the world right now, and you can apply it to cards, right? Like basketball and football experience such an outrageous parabolic growth cycle
Yeah.
for that 2-year run that it's just a natural piece of the puzzle is that these cards are going to go down, right? 15% is a lot for basketball. It's more than I thought, honestly, going in.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm pumped about baseball. I'll tell you that. You know I love baseball, so and I love
Right.
seeing Chris Sands baseball's year in the spotlight. Love that.
And I know Nate loves that too. And I just gotta give a shout out really quick to talk about these specific categories right here. So like basketball is made up of like over 11,000 cards of the card ladder database, which is a lot. Like that's definitely the biggest sport with the most cards. And then if you look at like F1, there's just like, only been like 1 to 2 years now of F1 releases, with only one being logged in the F1 category. So
Mhm.
it doesn't take a whole lot to move that thing up 20%. It would
Yep.
take a whole heck of a lot to move that basketball segment up 20%. So there is different weights to these things to where it's not apples to apples. It's not like that's only taking the 50 best card from each category, like the CL50. This does incorporate like basically every single verified and tracked card in that specific sport. So my whole thing behind that is you look at the numbers, but remember, you need to interpret it more than just saying, oh, 15% versus 20%, that type of thing. Like, yes, we have it ranked here in a, ascending or descending order, but there's just, you got to read, but between the lines a little bit.
Absolutely. You want to move down a little bit?
Oh yeah, let's keep going along here. I want to give a quick shout out to what Andy said. There's a quoting here from Andy Albert from IndyCar Exchange. He said baseball is up because of how strong the rookie class is. He says people are looking into baseball because they can afford products and get good rookie cards. Bobby Witt Jr. and Julio Rodriguez, those guys are studs with huge
And Jeremy
upside.
Pena.
And your Pena guy from the
Thank
Astros.
you.
But I want to give a quick shout out to this because I do think that the rookie classes matter so much. If you look back to 2018 and 2017 and 2019 basketball, that's when basketball was so hot because you've got all these guys that are like could be generational talents. Same thing goes with baseball right now with Bobby Witt Jr., Julio Rodriguez. I know Torkelson was called up among a slew of other guys. Penny, your dude from the Astros. That brings excitement to the market. That makes people go buy into that stuff. Back in 2017, when Aaron Judge and Cody Bellinger were two of the top MVP candidates as rookies, baseball was so hot. And then, yes, it did quiet down a little bit. There was a couple bad I'd say bad releases in there based on rookie classes, but definitely this year. And Wander Franco, how could I not name Wander Franco as rookie from Series 1? That's definitely brought interest to the markets. The rookies matter so much, the actual players themselves.
Yeah, I definitely feel like baseball is getting very exciting from a fan perspective, which I think, trickles down to the card market. It feels like, I know there's been some bad releases, but it feels like we're on like a 4-year run of really good young players coming into the league every single year.
Oh, I will agree with you that definitely there's been a good run. 2018 was Soto, Cunha, Otani, and then Torres, if you want to name him too, I guess, was really good. Walker Buehler was that year, and then 2019 with Tatis and all those other guys, and 2020 Bichette and Jordan, your dude is just killing it right
It's
now.
crazy. 2021, 2021 might have been the down year.
That's the thing. 2021 was super bad. Like names that could have been really good: Joe Adell, Joey Bart,
Just didn't
among
pan
other
out.
guys.
Yeah, Joe Adell. Oh my god,
I know you were big in Joe Adell,
I love
but
Joe Adell.
they've just all pretty much like been disappointing. Dylan Carlson's been kind of like the best, but also still disappointing this year, I believe.
Hmm.
Last I talked to Nate.
Yeah, like just fine.
Yeah, so like that really I think kind of maybe hurt some of the market last year for baseball, but given like this year, like it's crazy.
Awesome. Racing, our favorite thing. Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir. So F1, Formula One had some massive sales in June, and I'm gonna preface this with saying, yes, there were cards in Formula One that did decrease in value in June. We saw something like a Hamilton Sapphire Aqua of 99 PSA 10. It went from like 13K at the end of last year up to like 29K. This is the whole thing about like overpaying for goats. Like by no means should this PSA 10 Aqua ever went from 13 to 29K in the span of like a few months, but it did. And then it quickly dropped back down to 19. And then the most recent sales like 13 and a half. So from the peak, less than 50%. But that's like an anomaly. And there's a couple others that have dropped too. But there are some that have had all-time high sales. I want to shout out 4 different cards that set all-time highs for a specific driver or I guess logo, you'd say. So Verstappen, Mick Schumacher, Guan Yu Zhou, Thank God he's okay. That was super scary last weekend. And then the logos. So all four of those had an all-time high sale with this Verstappen Red Refractor Auto. That was the most expensive card of Max that ever sold publicly, and it was the most expensive Topps Chrome Auto from Formula One to ever sell. And then Mick Schumacher, his PSA 10 Superfractor rookie, sold for $40K, most expensive card of him.
Crazy.
Guan Yu Zhou at $18,000 for his PSA 8, which I think that the person who bought this on Instagram, but to me, of all these cards here, this one makes, even though the Mick one's pretty crazy at 40K, 18K for this card is a little concerning given that there is a 2020 Future Stars of Guan Yu Zhou. It's not like that this is his rookie card with Alfa Romeo, which will be coming out for the 2022 release. Like, you know how Mick has got Haas for 2021. This is another F2 Future Stars card. So it's kind of like in Bowman, when you got the first Bowman, it'd be like their Bowman draft release after the Bowman release or something like that. You know,
Yeah,
where
I'm a
like,
little confused by it as well, to be honest with you.
yeah, so this one just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But then the Mercedes logo, I think that this was like a deal for anyone that's got 5 figures to spend. That is a brand power play right there.
Sneaky, man.
Like, I would spend $13,000 on this versus the second Guan Yu Zhou Superfractor like every single day of the week. They did not make logos for a 2021 set. So this is like the best logo you can ever get of Mercedes. 13K for a PSA 7 Superfractor 1 of 1.
It's a great take.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about F1 in general right now? It feels like the general vibe is a little bit slower, and people are kind of not waning interest, but it's not as much of an event every weekend. It feels like.
I mean, I love it every weekend. So for me, it feels like that. But I think that the problem that we're seeing is that, and it was a little bit different this past weekend, right? Carlos Sainz shot first win. That was awesome to see. And it was a great last 10 laps.
Double Haas points.
Yeah, double Haas points. That's the first time in like 2 or 3 years or something like that.
First time ever they've gotten double points, I think.
No, they had to have double points in the past. Maybe first time ever with Mick Schumacher. That's true. I know.
Maybe that's what it was. Mick's first points.
Yes. But what I will say is that I think that really hurt once Leclerc kind of fell out of the title race. I think everyone was excited to come and see a battle of 2 to 3 teams every single weekend. And for about a 7-week stretch, it was just Red Bull. It was just Red Bull all the time, Max winning or Perez winning. And now, yes, Sainz won and Max had problems with the car, but Max probably would have won again, if he didn't have the problems with the car. So all that to be said is that I think that having more competition helps a lot. And if the rest of the season, if Mercedes can challenge, it will be really exciting. And I do think it'll get back to that. Remember, after the summer break that happens during August, I think it's going to heat up a lot. Like, it's going to be like, really every single week, like looking like, okay, what's the point countdown to seeing who can pass who in the standings and stuff. That's coming from a perspective of someone who's a huge F1 fan, has a ton of F1 cards. I know this is not for everyone. If you don't like it, that's okay. You don't have to buy the cards. I love it. I buy and sell the cards all the time. We just got a bunch to get graded and stuff. So that's the perspective I'm coming from, at least.
I agree with you. I think it's kind of been a little bit of a runaway, and it's like, it's even worse than it looks. Cause like you're saying, if Max doesn't have trouble with his car in like 3 races or something, I think he wins like almost every race this year.
Yeah.
They're just by far the best. He just has by far the best car. And I think that's one of the realities of F1 is like, if the cars aren't good enough for the top teams, if McLaren doesn't have a good enough car, if Mercedes' car isn't good enough, and if Ferrari keeps making strategy mistakes, it's just going to be a runaway.
And I know that this year was supposed to be like, oh, new regulations is supposed to tighten the competition. I think in the midfield it is. Any given week,
midfield it absolutely is.
Yeah, you can see any team jump another team and get up to like the 4th or 5th best team, and you can see any team be the worst team. Like AlphaTauri was terrible this past week, and it hurt me. But I will say I think that next year is going to be crazy because I think you're seeing like some of these teams getting these development things down during the middle of the season, knowing that they're not going to compete this year. And then next year, my fingers crossed is that we see like 4 teams fighting for like race wins every weekend.
That'll be good.
It'll be peak F1 at that point.
Yeah. And I also, this is a little bit further down the road, but if they get serious about expansion and they bring in somebody who has real money, I think someone can come in and compete really fast.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that. I know that Andretti was trying to come in and compete. We'll see what happens with that.
Yep. Baseball.
This is your thing, man. We had 5 huge Bowman Chrome auto sales this past month. 2 over 100. Keep it messing this up. 2 of them sold for over 200K. 3 of them over 100K. But basically, we looking at this list here, you've got Otani at 240K for a red, Soto 144K for a red. Which, Lou, I don't know if you saw our Instagram reels. This is Soto's best Bowman Chrome card. The Superfractor is destroyed. It was altered, autograph wiped.
You are the person who initially told me about this. I never knew that this was like a real issue, that they just lose. Like, some cards are just gone. For major players, their cards are just not there because they got destroyed in the mail or whatever else.
No, this was legit gone. Like PSA got rid of this thing, like took this thing out of circulation, the super
But
fractor
why?
soda, because it got altered. It was autograph wiped as a BGS 99. The autograph got wiped on the side of the card
Oh,
because it
right. I
trailed off.
forgot about this.
Yeah, and then also I think that it had like an 8.5 corners and it got a PSA 10. I'm pretty sure it's trimmed too. So PSA
Crazy.
bought it back, took it out of existence. Now this red refractor auto is Soto's best Bowman Chrome card in existence. And this one, the interesting thing here is that that thing dropped from 280K last October to 144K. Some economy things, some some performance things with Soto, we love Soto. We have got a couple of Soto cards because we think he's going to have a big second half of the year. But stuff happens. And now the ones I think that you might have the biggest take on, and Nate would be having a field day here, is Marcelo Meyer and Christian Hernandez, both selling for over 50 grand for a red refractor auto PSA 10. Two guys who are prospects, both teenagers, I believe. And that is a ton of money.
That's a lot of money. I know how it go. We know how it goes with these high end prospects. These cards sell for a lot of money, so I can kind of get there on Meyer. Very much not there with Hernandez. Like that's a lot of money for Christian
Yeah,
Hernandez.
I'm pretty sure he's an international signee and has had about like a season or so under his belt and is like 60th
Good player.
overall.
Looks really interesting.
Yeah, but like to the point to where you're spending like nearly 60 grand and also more than Marcelo Meyer, who was like what is he, number 2 overall draft pick or number
Something
1 or
like
something?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, something big. Like it just is a little, who knows, but it is what it is. I mean, people spend big money on Bowman Chrome, and that's just what this is showing, right? It's just people spend a lot of money on Chrome.
People spend a ton of money on Chrome. Baseball, for all it is and all it isn't, is the most consistent market year in and year out in cards.
You know what you're
And
getting each year. You absolutely know what you're getting every
you know
single year.
exactly what you're getting. And I honestly believe a Mike Trout Bowman Chrome autograph is like the best card that you can own.
I love the card.
It's
I've never
hard to
owned one.
like. Is it a top 5 card you can own? Type of card, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And then Otani, who is just unbelievable, just continues to amaze
Superhuman,
me.
dude. He's a superhuman.
Continues to amaze me.
Definitely. We can, if you do want to read the takeaways on this, feel free to hop into the article, but we just gave obviously a brief overview. And then we'll just jump into the next segment here because we already talked about it a bit, so we don't have to spend too much time on it.
Yeah.
But this is just looking at vintage versus ultra modern. I think that's pretty obvious to say that ultra modern and modern have gotten hurt the most here in 2022, just because the cards are very replaceable and there's a lot of them. You go and you look at vintage and pre-war, which is before 1948, I want to say. No, sorry, before 1945. This is based on Card Ladder's standards for indexes. Those have held up very well or have done even in the green this year. And I think that this is all because people kind of get that in their back of the head. That's like, hey, vintage is like gold. You look over the next 5 years and it's just kind of like up and to the right steadily versus like ultra modern. It's like, yeah, Patrick Mahomes has a huge season, wins MVP, Super Bowl. You see, boom, spike up, but he has a season where he's hurt and doesn't do that well. You're dropping 30%. So like that's the idea here. And I do think that can create for maybe a little bit of an overinflated market for vintage. Now, I'm no vintage expert. I don't claim to be. I have a very few amount of vintage cards. But I just know when anything goes up in price kind of faster than it ever has before, there could be a couple drops. So if you are looking to buy a vintage card, I would say maybe now is not the most excellent time to do so, but it depends on the card you're looking at, obviously, and I can't really determine that. That's just some feeling I get.
Yeah, I think, vintage is always viewed as one of the safest ways to park your money in cards, right? So I think in a world where this modern stuff is down 19% year to date, 5% on a monthly basis, people are going to go back to what they know. They're going to go to Michael Jordan, they're going to go to Oscar Robertson, they're going to go to Ted Williams, whatever, and that's where they're going to spend their money. So it's not that surprising to me, but you're right, it does go up very fast.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll skip over quite a bit of that. Just there's a lot of information there, and then just
Some cool cards in here, though.
Yeah, I want to point out that we did include a couple of cards that were trending up in price, but I want to also make clear these are the cards that a lot of it's due to the eye appeal of the card. Like the Paul Coffey, like 81 PSA 8. One might be super center and one might be really off center. That could include a 20% swing in price.
Absolutely.
And then this is a very interesting takeaway here is looking at the price levels because when you think about the low end, the mid end, and the high end market, high end being $5,000 and over, low end being $500 and under, mid end being everything between that. It's very plausible for people who have more money to hold on to their cards longer. Like that's just not a take that's really that out there, which would lead to less price drops on these rarer cards versus people who maybe need to sell their PSA 9 of Julio Rodriguez 2019 Bowman Chrome. No matter how good Julio Rodriguez is, because the guy's a stud, back-to-back Rookie of the Month winner and Player of the Week winner now for the AL. Some people just need to sell that card for whatever reason, to pay for their gas, whatever it is. We don't need to determine that or look at why people sell, because people have to sell for their reasons. But that just can hurt a market like the low end faster. There's less rarity involved, and then that also means that the market it reacts faster when there's more transactions, like we talked about earlier. You can get a 20% dropper with a 20% drop faster in the low end market than you can in the high end market, for sure.
Makes a lot of sense. I think this is very self-explanatory. It kind of fits with, if you're involved in cards at all, you can kind of feel this exact thing. So it makes a lot of sense to me.
Definitely. And the amount of people that even in today's market are actively trying to trade up or build up to that rarer piece, use the smaller cards to be a vehicle to get to bigger cards. I mean, I've been doing it my whole life, and now finally
the blueprint, literally.
It is. And that's also why you see some of that stuff, because people are willing, if they did have cards that maybe they thought, oh man, I could take these 5 cards, turn it into this bigger card, even if it drops 20%. If the other cards are also kind of dropping, they might say, all right, I'll still sell the 5 cards, take a 20% loss, but I see this thing I can get out there that's a better investment. People are willing to cut their low end stuff faster to get a better investment that can grow because of rarity. We give a little scroll down here. This is just pointing out that because of the big drops in like the base PSA 10 markets in the last year and a half, with the populations rising. What do you say?
Just crazy to look at this, like, as like a snapshot compared to 18 months ago is.
And it all has to do with the supply and population, also where the demand is. That's literally the only things that has to do with. But I just want to point out that this type of deal, when all these cards are kind of encapsulated in the low end market, it makes that number so much of a bigger drop, because these PSA 10s are dropping so fast. But I look at this and I don't want people to say, oh man, just because I have a collection that only has $100 card in or a $25 card in, that does not mean that your cards are also dropping by 20%. That just means that majority of the cards being tracked in this index are dropping fast, because they are these base PSA 10s that are growing in numbers, supply super fast, or have grown in supply super fast. But there are a ton of really good 25, 50, even 10, $100 cards out there. Even, we've got a ton ourselves that we're going to go to the National with and be really excited to sell and buy cards like that. So I don't want this to be like, hey, if you're not a high-end collector, well, you're kind of screwed. That's not the point. It's just
definitely not the point.
Not the point at all.
I actually think it's kind of the opposite in a weird way.
Explain. Go a little bit further.
I think there's so much opportunity. Like, I just see it every week on Play of the Week. Like, there's so much opportunity out there for people. We had someone this week go from $2 to $75 in like 24 hours. And it's like, you take that 75 and then you go make that 75, 250, make that 250 to 500. And like, it's all out there. It happens every single week. I think it's really there. The thing with the high end stuff is I think a lot of people got into things at high numbers. And when you commit that much money to a card, you kind of got to sit there and wait and see what happens with it. And if you sell at a loss, of course, that's where you see those numbers go down, etc. But there's a lot more room to move when you're doing the low end. And I think that's way more fun. It always has been more fun to me.
I agree with you. And, we're having so much fun right now with buying, numbered $25, $50 cards, getting them graded, and either selling those and getting a bigger card, or just keep on moving the wheel. Like, that's what the name of the game is.
Grading's back, huh?
It is. I mean, for us, specifically, like, we're grading a lot with SGC, and they're coming back so fast. And people, I see more now today than ever. I think people are willing to buy, no matter what the label is, who you want to grade with. It's all about what's inside of the freaking case. Before, it was like, hey, is this a PSA 10 base Acuna? If it's a 9.5, I don't want it. Who cares? It's like, I want that Botas card that's numbered out of 10 because of what it is, type of deal.
Yeah, people are getting smarter. And I think, OGs in the card market have always preached this, and it's finally coming through to the masses, myself included. Mm-hmm. It's, the value of understanding that what you're buying is better than just making a play based on a grading company.
I agree. I agree. All right, if you give this a quick scroll out into the SlabStox bottom line, this is
the bottom line.
The super interesting fact. This has to do with the base PSA 10s, and it says, where is the floor? I'm just going to read this for you, Lou, and you tell me if you remember this time. The base PSA 10 market still has room to drop. While the Luka Doncic Prism 2018 base rookie PSA 10 is $333, which could look like a deal from the peak price of $2,000, that same card used to be $40. When they were $40, there were definitely not 20,000 PSA 10s flooding the market like that there are now. The market is extremely smart compared to 2 years ago, and the trend will continue on the low supply, sought-after brand sought after brand cards taking all of that market money. Isn't it crazy? Think about that. One day these cards were $40, and at that time it was like a pop 800 or like 1,000, and then now they're $333 and a pop 20,000. That market cap is still like 10 times the size.
It's unbelievable, and I definitely agree that there's room, you know, on the downside for those cards. It's extremely difficult to sustain pricing when you're talking about 20, 30, 40,000 cards.
Definitely. And there's so many
How long do we
options.
have a pop 50,000 base card?
Um, I don't know if we will actually hit that for
You
a
don't
couple of
think
reasons.
so?
One, back when we get to this 20,000 Luca PSA 10, a lot of these were because PSA was grading so cheap. People were saying that PSA and the print run and the quality control were like there to get it up to over 20,000. Same with the Acuna and the Soto Tops base updates. Now, if you look at it today, it's like, well, one, the quality control stinks on so many releases that to hit PSA 10s on like that many is going to be a lot. And two, the cost of grading is so high, it just doesn't make sense. So like I think that the print runs are so high. I think it just is difficult to hit 50,000 base PSA 10s. Like I don't
It's a
you can
fair
maybe
point because the production is questionable as well. Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah. Like don't get me wrong, it's possible based on the production. It's just like the monetary values might not make sense anymore for that to happen.
Yeah. How many total are there? Do you know? How many total Lucas are there
That's a great question, but there has to be a couple 100,000 just to
in
like
the pop?
just in the production.
I'm talking about in the pop.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like no matter the grade.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Remember when the 2018 Prism Basketball PSA page like would never load ever?
It went low. They literally the database was so slow it would not do anything. And now you can actually just type it in and within like 10 seconds here of me starting this search, I got it. So there's 34,200 like 50
That's so
total.
many cards, man. That's so many cards. All right,
So
anyway,
many
I don't want to get stuck on it.
for sure.
Takeaway
All
number
right.
4.
Yeah, takeaway number 4 is just about big winners and potentially big losers too, based on performance. Because I think this is what drives the dynamic market. It's performance. It's what's happening on the TV, on the Twitter that you're reading. You're looking at the highlights. Just like last night, Chet Holmgren goes and drops 23 points and 6 blocks and 4 of 6 shooting from 3 in his G League debut. And people are running out and spending like $300-400 on his non-licensed autos right now, which cool cards and all, but like remember where the long-term value is here. But people are willing to go and just completely buy anything that is associated with his name now. And I love Bowman University too. That's not a dig at all. I like the new sets. They're really fun. They're very collectible. But a year down the line when there's Thunder jersey cards, people are going to buy those instead. And the theory here is that to actually like say, wow, I flipped a slab in the last 3 months, you would have needed something like this. Flipping slabs very difficult to do in the last 3 months, as all the indexes point to. But Andrew Wiggins, guy goes and wins his first title. He's a starting all-star this past year for odd reasons. A lot of that is fan vote, but he did do a really, really good job in the finals, and they got that W. And his Prism Silver PSA 10 rose 55% in a month. Someone went and popped a 2015 Flawless Logo Man game used for $12,000 with an autograph on there.
We were talking about this on the show yesterday in relation to DeJounte Murray. How do you feel about that 12K sale? From how do you what's your emotional reaction to it?
My reaction, that's a lot better $12,000 spent than some of these other cards that sell for 12 grand.
Interesting.
Are you out on it? You're like, nah, it's stupid.
I'm not out on it, but it's more like I don't know, man. Like Andrew Wiggins is never gonna be the best player on a championship team. I don't think.
Yes, you're right. But for me, it just all goes back to unique and rare stuff. Now, I'm not saying I'd spend 12 grand on Andrew Wiggins card, but whoever was willing to spend 12K on Andrew Wiggins card, I think that this was like kind of like oh yeah, you bought the right card type of deal. But I don't know
That's
if
for sure. It's a great card.
yeah, it's unbelievably looking. It's so sick and everything. Just a couple other names to shout out. We don't need to dig into the performance too much, but Paul Goldschmidt was super hot in May and June, and he had a huge sale for his red refractor auto at 5K, which is crazy because we just looked at Christian Hernandez selling for 55K, and this is Paul Goldschmidt selling for 5. How crazy is that?
That is a very good point for people who may not understand baseball that much. Paul Goldschmidt's like a top 15 MLB player, something like that, top 20 MLB player. Like he's a real asset in the world, has been a very good player for a very long time. Christian Hernandez was signed like 25 minutes ago and his card is selling for 6x. It's or 7, 8x. I don't even know. It's crazy.
as a Brewers fan who really only watches Brewer games for the MLB until the postseason, Paul Goldschmidt's like the best player in the world because he literally just hits like 350 and a bomb every
Every
other
single
day.
year he hits 300 and he hits like 30 home runs every single year.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. So, like, it's a fun thing about this market report is you read and you can kind of connect the dots between the different things. Like, we didn't explicitly state it in this little write up here, but if you pay attention, you'd be like, oh my gosh, how's that possible? 10% of a prospect who was just signed? Crazy. And then Shao Kilmakar, just unbelievable player for the Colorado Avalanche, one of the best defenders in the NHL right now. If not the best, he is the best in my opinion. He won the Norris this year, which is the best defender. And the guy's just 23 years old, having won the Rookie of the Year, which is the Calder. I'm sure someday he might be a Hart Trophy winner, the MVP, and then he won the Conn Smythe, which is the MVP of the Stanley Cup Finals, the playoffs. Is that crazy in the NHL? There's always names for all the trophies, and you wouldn't just say MVP.
It's very confusing to me. Whenever anyone talks about hockey awards, I'm always like, sure, sounds great. Like someone was talking about the Rangers goalie was like going to win the best goalie award or something.
He did.
He did win, but they were saying the name of the award, and I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, my brother just said it to me the other day, and it's a very interesting award name. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, anyway, that's funny. Oh,
but yeah, so his cards were very hot, and this is actually one of the biggest sales of all time of him, I think, is that the Cup RPA PSA 9 sold for nearly 14 grand, which is, NTRPA of hockey. Very tough to grade cards, too.
Great hockey makes great. There's very nice hockey cards floating around in the world.
Upper Deck, I kid you not. No, I've been buying hockey and stuff, and I love hockey. I played it nearly all my life. I don't play that much anymore, but the Vezina trophy, by the way, is the goalie trophy.
Yes,
which is
Jay sent that over. Shout out Jay.
Super. Oh, he just typed in. I googled it too, but yeah. Shout out Jay. Upper Deck, dude. The cards are phenomenal. I bought one last night. I can't wait to show you. I'm so excited about it.
Is it your guy?
Yeah, it's my guy, Keandre Miller, of course.
Can't wait.
But and I guess your guy too, with being a Rangers fan. So
that's a fact. Lifelong Rangers fan. Marty Brodeur fans. Is it Vesna? I think I'm saying because of like Vecna from Stranger Things. I don't know if you watch Stranger Things.
Could be Vesna. It could be Vesna. It could be skipping the I.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's go to the losers.
Loser. So we didn't have it much right up here. This was kind of just like a, hey, guess what? These dudes lost this month. Juan Soto, for reasons we spoke about earlier. Deebo Samuel, this is one, a base PSA 10, which hurts. And then number two, his uncertainty of the future. Who really knows what's going to happen with him with the 49ers. And then Jason Tatum. His stuff got so unbelievably hot so fast. Well, his card is down 45% just in the span of 1 month. That should teach you a lot about, hey, maybe you shouldn't buy the player when he's like going off in a conference finals type of thing. This card, probably compared to the beginning of the year or the beginning of the season, it increased some amount. That's just an assumption, but yeah, it's just not. It would not be the right time to buy Jason Tatum at the beginning of June.
Yeah, I think Tatum's a very interesting offseason buy in my opinion because he's so young. These guys who go to the finals when they're this young and they're in position to continue to grow and succeed and probably play in more finals in the future are really, really interesting prospects to me as buys. When they're in their finals run is tough.
I agree. But to me, what happens is that what you watch on the TV could show you like kind of a glimpse into the next like 10 years. So you might sit there, you might say, man, Jason Tatum, I really believe in this kid. Definitely don't buy him when he's playing the Bucks and dropping like 45 points on them or something like that. But this offseason, now that he's dropped 50% from that peak price, then that's when you buy in and when you believe in. I'll be doing the same with Kel McCarr this summer, no doubt.
The SlabStox bottom line.
Yes, the SlabStox bottom line. So basically, if what we just talked about, man, like if they're dominating, they're probably gonna be dropping, regardless if they win or lose. And the same happened with Steph Curry too. Actually, some of his cards, a higher supply, definitely dropped in price after he won the finals. It doesn't really matter. And then if you do see a guy that you love, like back in 2019 when I saw Giannis go up 2-0 on the Raptors and then very quickly lost, 4 games and got eliminated, you might be sitting there and saying, "Oh man, Giannis can't do it, can't win the finals, this and that." But in reality, that's your best possible time to buy is when you see a player that's going to be one of the all-time greats and they lose and they get eliminated. How many all-time greats lost before they won? Jordan, LeBron, Kobe.
Pretty much all of them is the answer to the question.
Exactly. Like that's the point. So like you just kind of got to, make some ideas up as you go.
Yeah, and just made me think about something in general. I was talking to my friends about the NBA last night, and just like the way the NBA is covered is so annoying, and I think it trickles into how people think about cards as well. Like people talk about Jason Tatum like his career's over, and this kid's 23 years old. Like they have same thing with Giannis. Giannis was came in the league as like, Greek freak. He's like this amazing unicorn, blah, blah, blah. He didn't win the title in the first 3 years of his career, and people lost their minds, and he had to go through some growth to get to where he is now. Jason Tatum's going through that exact same learning process. So it's just patience. Like, there's so much patience needed with these guys because they all come out so young, 17, 18, 19 years old when they come into the league. They're in the league 6-7 years before they turn 25. It's unreal. And then they have 15 years ahead of them of the career. So it's just patience with these guys. That's
and
really
people, I already know that people are looking at Herbert like that because,
of course they are.
Because Mahomes won so fast. It's like, well, Herbert's got to win so fast. Well, it's like,
Yeah.
no, maybe Mahomes was just an anomaly, right?
And
like,
think about Mahomes. People were like, oh my God, Mahomes is the best, blah, blah, blah. He loses one Super Bowl to Brady. It's like, oh, whatever. His career it is what it is. He'll never pass Brady. Why are you buying the cards? It's like, I don't know, maybe because he could be like one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of short-term reaction, as we know, in the card market.
Yeah. All right.
On the last takeaway, it's this is going to be in every single report we do. It's what's coming up and what's to watch in the following months, and we'll go through these pretty quickly. But obviously, we're all going to be in tune to what Fanatics is doing. Maybe some more announcements will be coming out in the near future. Who knows? But we, from at least a perspective of distribution and also branding, because I think a lot of people are like, "Oh man, when is that Topps Chrome basketball product finally going to hit?" I think we'll know more as time goes on, but that's just goes without saying. And then another thing here I want to point out is that as more product gets printed, the quality control has been not so good recently. We don't have to pick apart every single example here, but just know that, if you are opening product, just know the risks that if you do open product, regardless of what it is, most of the time you can hit cards that just are not in the best condition. The best way to buy a card in gem mint condition is to what, Lou?
Buy a gem mint card.
There you go. That's basically the point here, is that like this, we know that like there's challenges to manufacturing. We know that there's challenges to releasing cards, all this stuff. But just like, I think that a lot of times where the perspective gets changed is where like the expectation is that every single card's gonna be gem mint. Now, that also is not to say that companies shouldn't be doing more and going above and beyond to ensure that especially their bigger releases have good quality control. Just, it's just an understanding as collectors I think we should have, is that we gotta be in tune to knowing that certain things are not always going to grade.
Yeah, and let me pause you for 1 second there. I think, again, sorry to go back to card talk. We talked about this, Ryan, a little bit today, yesterday on the show that came out today. There's not a lot of production facilities making all these cards right now. It's very limited, and they're pumping out millions of cards. Every single month they're pumping out these cards. So there's going to be issues. And I think you guys posted a video one time of how cards get put into boxes.
Yep.
And I think if people really understood how the sausage was made with this stuff, they'd be happy with the gem rate as opposed to unhappy with the gem rate.
You know what, man? I sit there and I think some days, how is it even possible my card's in good condition?
It's unbelievable.
And then also imagine on-card autos. I've seen Zach Wilson throw contenders autos across the desk.
Flipping them across the table. It's unreal how these cards survive. It speaks to how strong the stock is that they survive this stuff.
I agree with you.
But you're right. They definitely need to pick up the production quality. And I think that's something that's going to, as a result of, where we've been in the world for the last 2 years, it's going to take a rolling process to get back to a place where they're at production levels and at production quantities that they want, or quality that they want.
But I will say, like, I don't want to sit here and say, oh, it's okay because of this, because of that. They are charging a ton of money for these products.
Obscene amounts of money.
Now. Obscene amounts. So they need to figure it out. Like, I don't want to like be softy here. It's got to get figured out. It's charging so much for a product that's not up to snuff, in my opinion.
It's a fair point.
But also, I agree with Lou. There has been a lot of issues, but maybe it's time to just roll it back a little bit.
Wrong one of one autograph. What is that?
What do you say?
What was the wrong one of one autograph?
Dude, just click the link quick.
Okay, is it going to open for me? Oh, you're not going to be able to see it.
I thought it would. Oh, my bad. All right. Well, basically, what it is the
J.O. put it over top so people can see.
Yeah. J.O. put it over top. So Obsidian soccer product. Reece James, my guy from Chelsea. He's one of the best players in Chelsea. His 1/1 super sick logo patch auto had Hoyman Sons auto on there from Tottenham, and that's devastating, brutal, man. Devastating, because I wanted to buy the card and I reached out to the guy. I was like, oh dude, I need that. I wasn't even like paying that much attention. I was like, yeah, that auto looks kind of weird. Like, that's not Reece James's auto, but I didn't like really look at it and be like, hey, let me go figure it out. And then he's like, dude, it's such a cool card, but it's not even his auto. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why I thought it didn't look like his auto, because it's not his auto. So yeah, very, very tough. And also the ball goes a little bit further. We didn't include it in here, but Reece James's auto was on the Harry Kane 1/1 patch auto, which means that Harry Kane's auto is on the Hoyman Sons 1/1 patch auto.
Was it a sticker? Like, how does that happen?
I don't know, man. I don't know if how they even put the stickers on the cards. So either a machine took the wrong sheet and put it on, or
But
someone
they were
actually
sticker autos.
they were sticker autos. Yeah.
It's not like Reece James or whatever. It's not like they got the wrong cards
No,
and then they just signed their name on the.
no, it is a sticker.
Okay, okay, got it.
But still, yeah, crazy, right?
Wild.
All right, Lou, how about the National, man?
Yeah, listen, we're excited about the National. It's gonna be a good time. We have our hot corner. You're in our corner, right?
Dude, we're like 2 rows to the left of you, and then
Yeah,
Ryan's
we
right
have a
next to
whole
us.
little spot over here. So we're gonna have fun. I think it's in the top left, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna have a lot of fun. Car Talk's throwing an event. SlabStox has a charity event that I'm sure we will talk about more. Actually, why don't you get into that a little bit? I want to make sure.
Yeah, very brief here. So basically, coming up at the trade night that's put on by Ryan and Jimmy from Ryan from Car Collector 2, Jimmy from Kentucky Roadshow. They're doing their trade night they've done for the past like 6 nationals, and we're gonna have a small segment of our charity event that we've done last year, now this year too. Last year we raised 141K for Camp Kesem, sending kids to camp for free whose parents have cancer, and we're doing it again this year. We've already got like I think it's like nearly $35,000 in donations in the first couple of weeks. I'm hopefully bringing a lot more here. So if you're out there, you want to help, if you want to send in slabs, raw cards, sealed boxes, sealed packs, whatever it is, PO Box is SlabStox Charity. You can title it PO Box 320384, Franklin, Wisconsin 53132. We have different sponsorship values. If you want to become a sponsor of the event, info@slabstox.com. Send me an email. But other than that, just looking to raise as much money as possible for the kids. And you can buy all the different stuff we got donated, which is some really good stuff right now. We just got donated a 2018 Prism First Off the Line box. That's Luca and Trey's, rookie year,
Wow.
$5,000 box, among other insane boxes and slabs. You can buy all of it through Whatnot on July 19th at 6 p.m. Eastern time, or on July 21st at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Nate and I are both hosting a show each, and then we'll have a PWCC weekly auction that will end on July 31st, the last day of the National, starting at 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern time. So a couple different ways to buy stuff. But like I said, if you subscribe to the Daily Slab newsletter, I can guarantee you'll learn all about this stuff as the month goes on. Best way to learn is through that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys do great work for that charity, and it's really honorable what you do. So I'm proud of you as a friend.
Thanks,
But anyway, National, it's gonna be a great time. We'll be there Wednesday to Sunday the whole time. Like I said, the Car Talk event is Thursday night. We will be doing podcasts, recaps of the show, basically just recapping the vibes. Ryan, Tyler, and myself every night after the show when the show closes. Usually as the show closes when we do it. And we're just gonna be hanging out. I'm excited to see everybody. I'm excited to hang out. I think it's gonna be interesting vibes, in my opinion, because I think obviously the state of the world is what it is, and I'm excited to see what people are doing. I will be there in most likely a buying and selling, mindset. Last year I kind of went in there pretty heavy buy focused. This year I'll be a little bit of both. So I'm excited about it. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm just pumped. I mean, we got a ton of supply coming this year. Last year, we definitely were like not like we had stuff there to sell. And we're doing like a very little bit of buying, but like this year, we'll be very active on both fronts. We've got nearly 200 Formula One slabs. We got our entire Flip Quest display that's going to be there. It's like over 100 different slabs that we bought this year through the PWCC weekly auction. So that'll be a blast. And it's gonna be a really good time. We'll be looking to buy a lot of like high quality raw cards. Not, I mean, obviously condition wise, but like low numbered stuff, patch autos, stuff like that. I'm very interested in.
Fire. I also wanted to point out real quick, something we see on TikTok a lot is people asking about like shows that are happening around them. Inside the market report, there is upcoming card shows and upcoming card releases. So I hope everyone checks that out as well. And I think that about wraps it up, Aaron. This is the first time. I'm pumped. I had a good time. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everyone who listened enjoyed it. Next month we'll be back. We'll try to get Nate in here so I can debate with Nate for 45 minutes. He's one of my favorite humans of all time.
That can be like a 10-minute segment, debate with Nate.
Yeah, I love Nate, man. He's one of my favorite people of all time.
He's a good guy. I like him too.
I love him. All right, cool. That was it. Thank you, everyone. Please leave a comment below. Let us know what you think of it, what we could do better, what we could do different, what you want to take out, what you want to see more of, etc., etc., etc. At Car Talk Pod on Instagram and everywhere else. At SlabStox everywhere. At SlabStox Aaron. Thank you for listening. See you next time. Peace.
Thank you, everyone.